On the 8th of March 2024, Ireland is going to hold a referendum to alter sections of our constitution. What this means is that Ireland is going to hold a vote to change the wording of various sections of our founding legal text, that is, the text that our first government put into place in 1937 to guide our country when it was only starting out after a violent civil war that lasted many years. There are two proposed changes. The first one relates to the concept of the family in the eyes of the state. The second one involves altering the section relating to care between family members. In each of the two changes, there are two sections that will be affected. The first section to be altered in the first proposal is Article 41.1.1, which means article, or the specific chunk of text in question, number 41, section 1, subsection 1. The current wording of this article is as follows. The state recognises the family as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. The proposed alteration is to add one line to the existing stanza. The proposed change is this. The state recognises the family, whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships, as the primary and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. The reason for this change is because the Irish people have been calling upon the government to recognise families not established through marriage. There have been harrowing cases of men and women with children not recognised as family units and experiencing horrible social exclusions from welfare schemes and assistance that, for the exception of a marriage certificate, would be duly owed to them. Many families are lone parents, same-sex parents or grandparents, the argument being that the Irish Constitution, as a legal representation of the values of the country, should accurately reflect the members of that country. There is a second alteration to this particular article. This change is to Article 41.3.1. The current text is this. The state pledges itself to guard with special care the institution of marriage on which the family is founded and to protect it against attack. The proposed alteration is as follows. The state pledges itself to guard with special care the institution of marriage and to protect it against attack. The removal of an express protection of the institution of marriage as one based on family is in the same vein as the aforementioned alteration. It is to remove from the Irish Constitution any pretense that the family is dependent on marriage for its legitimacy. This is so an inclusive atmosphere is created in Irish societies for families of all varieties, not just ones established through marriage. While these are virtuous goals, there is little discussion around whether the reason behind why these changes to Ireland's substructure are even necessary, and are they good or are they unfortunate. No one is saying that keeping a man whose partner of 20 years dies, leaving him with 3 teenage children, away from the widower's pensioner is a good thing, but the statistic that 42% of children born in Ireland are born outside of a marriage or civil partnership is not a statistic of triumph. It has been well established that the greatest contribution to the overall well-being of children, including avoiding poverty, doing well in education, staying out of crime, avoiding addictions and avoiding teenage pregnancies, is the presence of a stable male-female relationship in the family home. By taking the foundation of the family as one based on marriage away from this definition, you are raising the potential for a greater number of children to be at risk of all forms of lifelong hardships. This is not to condemn single parents to failure, but is instead recognizing and respecting that parenting is at least a 2-person job, and anything less than this will inadvertently raise the potential of hardship for all involved. The institution of marriage comes from a long line of tradition stretching over thousands of years. If one is to adapt it to suit a social phenomenon just a few generations old, they should proceed with extreme caution. This is not an advocation for the exclusion of non-marriage or civil partnership families, but it is a word of warning to anyone shrugging off the wisdom of antiquity, marriage being an antique tradition, and tradition is simply an experiment that worked and was proved true through multiple repetitions. Further to this, the lack of a clear definition of what constitutes a stable relationship is a facet that should give cause for concern. What qualifies a relationship as durable? Must a couple be of a certain age and be part of a relationship that has passed a certain time frame? And how should it be measured? What conditions would mark the birth and the death of a relationship? Is there a difference between a 3-year relationship between teenagers and a 1-year relationship between two 30-year-olds? Must legislation be drawn to create these distinctions? And this is to say nothing of the more unorthodox relationships that exist out there. And if this idea of a durable relationship is to be included in the country's definition of family, then it deserves, if not demands, its own definition, especially if it is to be involved in the raising of young, a tricky feat to get right even with a host of scholars on hand. The second proposal change affects Article 41.2.1 and Article 41.2.2. These sections relate to the provision of care in family homes. The existing sections go as follows. Article 41.2.1 states, in particular, the state recognises that by her life within the home, a woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. Article 41.2.2, the state shall therefore endeavour to ensure that mothers shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labour to neglect of their duties in the home. The proposal is to remove the reference to women and replace it with a gender-neutral rewording that goes as follows. The state recognises that the provision of care by members of a family to one another by reason of the bonds that exist among them gives to society a support without which the common good cannot be achieved, and shall strive to support such provision. The reasoning for this is to recognise the provision of care within a family by more than simply women. Fathers, uncles, aunts, grandparents, children, neighbours, they all contribute to the provision of care within the home, and as such, the law should reflect the multifaceted nature of providing care within the home. Further to this, social groups have been calling for this alteration since before the article was written into law. It has been repeatedly condemned over many years as a sexist and misogynistic confinement of women to the home. A gender-neutral refinement would remedy this issue. Some people have argued that the proposed change leaves the government's commitment to supporting the family in the grey zone, but the existing legislation doesn't exactly make the terms of their provision of support any clearer. A bigger issue for most people revolves around the reference to women. Many people interpret these articles to mean a woman's place is inside the home. An alternative view would be that it is instead a state recognition that the specific work women do in the family home is incomparable to anything else and is paramount to a healthy functioning society. It is a state declaration of the incomprehensible value women offer to society by how they contribute to home life. So much so that the state felt compelled to assist women so as to maximise their extraordinary benefit. They would not be forced out of the home purely due to financial urgency. It does not prevent nor condone women who voluntarily leave the home to find self-satisfaction in paid employment. However, a disastrous byproduct of this state endorsement of homemakers proved in Irish history was a culture of accepting discrimination against married women from taking a job outside the home. The marriage bar was a countrywide exclusion of married women from the workforce that was permitted, and some would say encouraged, by the wording of Article 41.2.1. The removal of the state's recognition of female-based care is mourned by the romantic, who finds it endearing that a country would recognise a particular group of society and legally place them in such high esteem. It is almost impossible to imagine the reverse to exist. Imagine for a moment there was an article of the Constitution recognising the work of men who go out to work every day to jobs they often resent, to earn money they can't spend in order to pay for a home they spend little time in and are legally bound to provide for the upkeep of all its occupants. How about adding this to the Constitution? Would that not be the perfect balancing act of equality? While one can certainly recognise that the isolating of women to a role that bears little monetary reward or social acclamation is not very enticing, but to switch the wording that places the care provided by everyone on equal footing is just as unpalatable. No two hugs are the same. The bond that exists between family members are not all strands of the same string. The care provided by one person may be the blind spot of another. Some care is financial provision, while other care is emotional warmth. It is hard to say that one is superior to the other, and maybe it truly is fairer for neither one to be recognised explicitly. There is no easy vote in this referendum. A yes vote may seem progressive on the surface, but a possible dark shadow lurks beneath. A no benefits no one in particular, and arguments have been presented that it is actively harming women and non-orthodox families. A yes-no or a no-yes produces a no more clearer outcome, locking non-traditional families out of social welfare benefits while liberating women from their bondage to the home, or the reverse, seems contradictory. As always, the public must parse through the reams of emotionally driven articles and misdirectingly bland political language to find where the rubber meets the road. Each man and woman must vote where their heart lies and embrace the outcome with quiet acceptance.